SummerSlam goes live at the end of this month, featuring what I predict to be 11 matches. But who will Seth face? What match will open the show? And how many champions will miss out? These are my match card predictions for exactly what is going to happen. Many have already been confirmed, but some are not quite in the books as of yet. And I have one championship belt holder missing out. Let's start by talking about who's going to open the show, because there is no question in my mind. There is one person who's become the show opener over the years. SummerSlams, WrestleManias, Becky Lynch, for me, will open the show against Trish Stratus. Many different reasons for this, but as it's Becky Lynch, you can't really be too surprised. Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus have been working towards this one since before WrestleMania with their brief but memorable tag team championship run, that being for Becky and Lita, and Trish basically helping them out at WrestleMania. This then fell apart in a massive way. More massive than the Ronda Rousey Shayna Baszler business that happened with that implosion. Could they coexist? No, they could not. Now Zoe Stark is also in the mix. No question in my mind that Zoe Stark will get her one-on-one match against Becky at some point soon, and it'll be at a big show. But Becky versus Trish has to happen first. Trish Stratus needs to be vanquished and go off on her merry way before Becky can step up to Rhea Ripley in the months and potentially years to come. This will be a defining feud with at least one Royal Rumble heavily involved. We open with Becky and Trish. I have shortly afterwards Sheamus taking on Austin Theory. Now Sheamus is already starting the build towards Austin Theory and will be actually facing Austin Theory at this week's upcoming SmackDown. But that one I don't expect to go the distance. This could end up being a 6-man tag match with Brawling Brutes versus Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly. Pretty Deadly ultimately are the ones getting the push right now, but I have Austin Theory picking up the win solo against Sheamus at SummerSlam. Much like the win over John Cena, this is another moment when they can really elevate Austin Theory, and Sheamus is someone experienced enough to give you that win and then move on without really suffering for it. From there, I move on to Ronda Rousey versus Shayna Baszler. This is a match that only really started to kick into gear at Money in the Bank, but it's very clear where we're headed. I've already mentioned Ronda Rousey's last match is expected to be at SummerSlam against Shayna Baszler, and Shayna Baszler is expected to pick up the win. Where she goes from there, I'm not sure. If we do end up with a face Shayna Baszler, as the fans seem to want, I can see her taking on Rhea Ripley in the months to come as well, in at least the build-up to Becky Lynch at either the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. Baszler, though, does not have too much chance of winning the championship right now. For Ronda Rousey's part, where she goes next is up to her, but it will not be wrestling that she goes to next. After that, we have a tag team match. I have Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens defending against Imperium. Now, there are a lot of teams currently trying to get that spot. Pretty Deadly wrestled against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn quite recently. And honestly, the tag team championships are at the most risk of not making the card. I would put them against Imperium simply as a way to get both teams on the card to put on, if you'll forgive the Sheamus of it all, banger after banger after banger for about 20 minutes of solid non-stop action. I don't want the fans to be forgetting about Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, and they won't, but I also don't want management to be forgetting about their tag team champions. Tag team wrestling is a strength of Triple H, even though at times women's wrestling is not. I do not think Imperium would be a major threat to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but I still think they could benefit from, even in loss, having the match take place. After that, we go to Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes. This is the rubber match. They each have one victory over the other, and Cody is fully healed and ready to take a pounding now. Cody, I think, comes out of this one the winner. Brock Lesnar typically takes a break after SummerSlam anyway, and you start hearing that his contract has expired, even though it kind of hasn't. There's a lot going on for Brock Lesnar, and for me, this might be his swan song as well, though to a much lesser degree. I still expect to see him again in the company, just a little bit further down the way. Cody Rhodes, meanwhile, needs a bit more heating up as he starts working towards people higher up the card, and of course people like Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, and some others who may be turning heel over the course of the night. Logan Paul takes on Ricochet. That is a match that I also reported on Spoiler Warning, so cheers to those who checked that out. Spoiler Warning did cover the fact that Logan Paul has asked for Ricochet, and I've confirmed this in a short as well that you might want to check out. Logan Paul has asked to wrestle Ricochet after being paired up with him at the Royal Rumble and getting a great fan reception to that brief let me just sort of spot that they did. It was very well received, and Logan Paul's getting quite a reputation as a high flyer. I have Logan Paul winning this. He's actually due a win, and Ricochet certainly can afford the loss, even though it would be a big moment for him. I think against someone like Logan Paul, you certainly get a good rub, and Ricochet will undoubtedly be on Impulsive at some point soon to help get him over going forwards. Logan Paul doesn't mess around. People get seen on his programming. I have Rhea Ripley taking on Raquel Rodriguez. Liv Morgan is the one champion that I do not have actually wrestling at SummerSlam. Personally, I think Liv and Raquel both are in a very strong position to actually compete because Rhea Ripley is seriously lacking face contenders. I would consider going Liv Morgan, but she is relatively recently back from injury, and I do think she's up basically next for Rhea Ripley. I think Rhea's trajectory basically goes beat Raquel here at SummerSlam, beat Liv shortly afterwards, beat Shayna Baszler shortly afterwards, likely Survivor Series time, and then take on Becky Lynch in the lead into WrestleMania. That's what I can see happening myself, although Baszler may end up winning the Royal Rumble and going to WrestleMania instead. Lots of different possibilities here, but for Rhea Ripley, she needs someone of a higher caliber than who she's been facing popularity-wise to really kick this particular championship run into gear. For me, that is going to be Raquel Rodriguez. Drew McIntyre will take on Gunther. Drew McIntyre returned very recently at Money in the Bank, another one that I reported 3 weeks ago at Spoiler Warning, and he immediately went back to a feud with Gunther. We knew he'd be returning, we knew what creative they were putting together, and I've got to say, I'm still very excited by the prospect. We know this is going to absolutely slap, we know there's going to be slapping in every way, shape or form, and Drew McIntyre, even though he's fresh back from being off injured, will be more than willing to injure himself again in order to put on a good Intercontinental title match. I have the championship changing hands here. It's one of very few moments when I think there's actually a risk of a championship changing hands. I have Drew McIntyre beating Gunther. Drew McIntyre is also the only person to have beaten Gunther on the main roster, eliminating him when he was still called Volta in a Survivor Series match, I believe in 2018 when NXT were involved. That was a hell of a show, and probably the weakest point of it was Drew McIntyre eliminating Gunther, but we are where we are with that one. Most of us remember Roman versus Keith Lee instead. Asuka will defend the Raw... I keep saying Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship. She'll defend the Women's Championship against Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair in a triple threat. If you've been watching Spoiler Warning, you knew this one was coming. There was talk of trying to get it onto the Money in the Bank card, but instead it's been pushed back to SummerSlam. Now, Charlotte versus Bianca is a long-term storyline that will not involve the championship. Asuka has a long-term date with Io Sky, again as reported on Spoiler Warning, and we will see that come into play starting at SummerSlam. Asuka will walk out the champion, retain her gold, and long-term Io Sky will be the one to claim it from her. Seth Rollins for me will face Finn Balor one more time. Damian Priest will be at ringside one more time, but I suspect this time we'll see Dominik also involved in a way of trying to keep Damian Priest from cashing in on Finn Balor. The year of Judgment Day continues apace, and everyone involved is getting a very strong push right now. For me, Seth Rollins does retain, but he may not leave SummerSlam as the champion. I think Damian Priest's time actually is now. So I would absolutely love to see that moment. Finally, that leaves us with the main event. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. It could be Jimmy, hell, it could be Solo, it could even be Paul Heyman. But for me, it's got to be Jey. This is the moment at which we reach the 3-year cycle of championship run. The Universal Championship, which has become the Undisputed Championship, along with the WWE Championship, is really genuinely at threat here more than anywhere else and any other opponent. And I think the championship changes hands. I have Jey Uso leaving SummerSlam as the undisputed WWE Universal Heavyweight Champion, or whatever that combination there is. Jey Uso for me leaves SummerSlam with the belt. I don't think he'll keep it very long. I think this is a Kofi Kingston situation, but I think the culmination of the Bloodline storyline is Jey Uso once again pinning Roman Reigns 1, 2, 3 to claim the gold. We'll be covering SummerSlam at length, we'll have ourselves a watch party, and of course we'll have plenty of news, a spoiler warning about what's coming, so be sure to hit subscribe and like the video, comment as well about what you're excited for SummerSlam. But as usual, I've been Tom Colohue, you have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.